Hi there, and welcome to another Live at 5. We're waiting for the admirable Richard Smith, the Keto Pro, the UK's leading nutrition specialist. Not here at the moment, but I'm sure maybe he's on a 100-mile bike ride and not here yet. So anyway, I'd like to say welcome to everybody that's showing up at the moment, which is great. So yes, greetings to you in Alaska, a place I'd love to go to actually. I would imagine it's cold all year round. I don't know. My understanding of Alaska is possibly that it is very northerly and therefore cold all year round, but I don't know. I might be wrong. But anyway, yes, welcome. Welcome. So if you're watching and you want to share where you're from, that'd be really handy. If you've got any questions or comments, then you can do that. We're just waiting for Richard to turn up. 5 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK, and today actually it's not rain today, so I've been working, not working out actually, so I'll get into that in a minute. Come on over, it's warm here in the summer. So yeah, is it the summer now in Alaska in this particular month? I don't know. We're supposed to be summer here in the UK right now, and I think it's meant to end sort of around the end of August, but the last 6 weeks have just basically been grey, rainy, cold, horrible. And yes, it is summer apparently in Alaska right now, so that's good. So I wonder how hot that actually is, because here we think 70 degrees Fahrenheit is hot, so sort of like 20 Celsius. Yes, and chilly in the winter. So it's chilly here actually. It was chilly last night. Duvet, I had the duvet on and everything. The Isle of Sheppey. In the UK, the Isle of Sheppey, yes. Well, you see now, I was actually born in Gravesend. Yes, as bad as it sounds, which is interesting for the point that that's on the River Thames. And if you read something like the Sign of Four, which is a Sherlock Holmes, a second novel about Sherlock Holmes, Gravesend gets a fair mention there because, and also I think in Dickens, maybe Great Expectations. Anyway. Because it was a port that people would go to just outside of London, so it was quite handy for a bit of smuggling to go on. So yes, welcome, Pippa. Anyway, right. It's a split digraft, isn't it? Then there's a consonant, then there's a vowel again. So vowel, consonant. Vowel is a split digraft. And for those that don't know, I also have an honours degree in English. But anyway, that's anyway. So yes, I says its name in that particular. So it should be Piper. There you go. Right, excellent. Right, Phil Richardson at 8. Just eating steak and burger patties in the sunny Dundee, Scotland. The sun is shining. I don't believe that. I mean, it doesn't. It does. I know. I love Scotland. Spent 6 consecutive years every August going up to the Edinburgh Festival. So people that don't know me very well, I did a bit of stand-up comedy talking about my deafness. I can just look at Madonna. I don't have to listen to her. That sort of joke. When you go and get your hearing test, they call out your name. They don't have a sign or anything. So those sort of things. That's why I'm not famous in the comedy circles, because my jokes were rubbish, really. No, they weren't. A positive take on being deaf. Favorite weather. Look at this. Now, this is interesting, you see. That's your favorite weather, rainy, grey and cold. In Anchorage, we went up to 70-ish. Yes. Now, this is interesting because, I mean, I like the sunlight and sunshine and the blue skies and a bit of heat, possibly because I don't get that very much. I remember going to Athens and speaking to a Greek guy there who lived by the Acropolis. And I was talking to him and I said, that must be amazing. And he said, well, no, because I wake up every morning, there's the Acropolis. So I suppose that was also when I went to the States. The first time I went second time. First time I went to the States, I went to Florida actually, and Miami. many years ago, in my 20s, actually, just after my bodybuilding show. So my one and done bodybuilding tournament. And I worked out at Gold's Gym, and that's where I worked out next to Sean Ray, not with Sean Ray, but next to him. He was on a stationary bike for forever, sweating like mad, huge. Sean, Shawn Ray, R-A-W, R-A-Y. Yeah, well, he was raw, by the way, slip of the tongue there. But yeah, Sean Ray, brilliant bodybuilder. Yeah, and I'd done my show, but it's natural. So he was huge, and I looked sharp. And anyway, so that was the first. Second time I went was to New York, and I stayed in Queens, so I could look at Manhattan at night rather than stay in Manhattan. Second time I went to New York, I stayed in Manhattan, which was better for the day because you could go straight out to Central Park. Anyway, right, I digress. Of course I do. But yes, I prefer hot weather because we don't get it. But I totally understand if someone has hot weather all the time, why they might like cold. But anyway, and some people just like cold. I don't know why, but yeah, that's the way it is. Autumn is really good. I like all the browning and all the leaves falling and all that sort of stuff. Carsten, hello, welcome along. Where do I live now? Pied Piper. Yes. Yes. Pied Piper. Pied being black and white, by the way. Yes. Where do I live now? I live in Derbyshire. I live in the Midlands, for those that don't know England or Britain, however you want to call it, United Kingdom. If you look at England, because you've got Scotland at the top, which is nice. You've got Wales at the side, which is really nice. And then you've got England, and Ireland, which is sadly split into two, which is a separate place, an island. And then France is down here. So if you look at England, right in the middle, the furthest away from the sea on every side, that's where I live. And I like living on the coast. Used to live down in Rye, which was great. I enjoyed that very much. Anyway, yeah, I'm not trying. I don't know if that's tongue in cheek. I'm hilarious. Maybe relating to the bad jokes, possibly. But there you go. And sunny, look at this. We're talking about the sun. Greetings from the US. It's 11 a.m., 92 degrees F, and it feels like 106. Happy Sunday, everyone, which is great. And I like that as well because I don't want to get too political, but the way they're talking about the climate temperatures now, they've stopped using air temperature and started using ground temperature, which is hotter. And also, I don't know if you know, but they measure basically near airports where there's lots of asphalt. So sometimes what you're told the weather temperature isn't what the temperature in the air is. And you get that 92, but it feels like 106, which does also rely on humidity, but I'm not going to get into that. But that's great. Right, so here we go. Here's the next one. Rod. Hi, Rod. Has anyone had an MRI done to look at bone density after being on a carnivore diet for a short while? Yes. I can speak about this because we've had this a fair bit. It's very interesting. One of my clients had a DEXA scan, and they were particularly worried after, I think, 6 months because they'd put on a pound. They were quite lean when they came to the carnivore diet, and they weren't used to eating lots and eating to satiety and eating fat. And they were very worried about this pound. Mary, her name is, and she was quite happy to allow me to talk about her. I can't grab the DEXA scans right now. Anyway, point being, that pound was not fat. That pound actually, what had happened, there was like a net result of losing a little bit more body fat, which you tend to do on carnivore, especially if you're strict. And, she was working out 68, by the way. So this the real kicker to this, but not working out really hard. She was just doing the workouts that I do. Basically, I offer a program that you can follow, sort of interactive to all different levels. It's personalized. Anyway, she was doing the workouts, and she was very worried about this pound. But she was also lucky enough to have enough money to have a second DEXA scan. And when we looked from 6 months ago to current times, it would have been a strange sort of net benefit. She'd lost some body fat, she gained muscle. So that's one thing allegedly you can't do. You can't gain muscle and lose body fat. So that we proved that was categorically not true. She was never in a calorie deficit, which a lot of people think you have to be to lose body fat. That's not true. It's what you eat, not the amount, and calories we don't tend to go with. But the biggest thing was the bone mineral density went up. And now that could have been also, from the training as well, but it was mainly the carnivore diet. And the reason I say that is because before the restrictions, I used to do monthly talks, nutrition talks with little groups of like 10 people, and they'd come every week for 6 to 10 weeks, depending on how much they could put up with me. And we do all their body composition readings properly with a scanner and all that sort of stuff. Everybody, by the way, 100% lost weight, fat, I should say. And I had a 77-year-old woman who, after the first 4 weeks, said that her husband was complaining about what was going on because she'd only lost 5 pounds, 77 she was, and she categorically did not exercise. Just for those people that want to know, do you have to exercise? No, but it's always good to exercise, but you don't have to. So she'd lost this 5 pounds, but actually what we found out was that she'd lost, I think off the top of my head, it was either 9 pounds or 7 pounds of fat, but gained a couple of pounds of muscle and also gained some bone mineral density. And yes, we see that time and time again. The reason I mentioned the DEXA scan is because that was recently, well, I say recently, it was maybe about a year ago. I can't ask clients to pay out for DEXA scan. So when somebody comes along that, is lucky enough to have the budget to be able to do that, obviously it's great to make the most of that for this sort of chat. So that was great. Okay. So here we go. No, you were just funny in general and make me smile. Thank you very much. It's good. I want to be entertaining and informative, really. So in a minute, I'm just going to check to see where Richard is, if you don't mind. So that means looking at my phone, which is a bit rude in the middle of a live. But he's going to be 10 minutes late. Well, of course he's going to be 10 minutes late. So just as a little trick, okay, what we'll all do is when I see him come into the studio, I'll press enter into the studio and I'll say, and that's the funniest thing I can tell you about Richard. All right, something like that. So he doesn't know what I said. Okay, so we're all in on that. Okay, so when he does get along, remember that. So I'm going to sort of in mid flow go, oh, it's Richard. Enter him and go. And anyway, that is the funniest thing I know about Richard. And I'll just see what happens from there. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Maybe you could comment, say, yeah, that is brilliant. Thank you for telling us that. So anyway, right. Hopefully, actually, he's not traveling and listening, because then I will be scuppered. Rod M, that is a great question. Yeah, you see, the thing is, it is a great question because we're always talking about protein synthesis, muscle mass, losing body fat, which is most people sort of, when it comes to body composition, the two things they talk about. I actually love talking about bone mineral density because it is the limiting factor when it comes to muscle growth. If your muscles want to grow, they are attached to bones. So, when you've got knobbly bits on bones, so for instance, that's a knee bone, and that's how the knee bends here, right? If you run your finger up your shin at the front and you feel a knobbly bit, well, that's where, and the reason I'm going to say this is a ligament stroke tendon is because this goes across up into the upper leg, the femur, and embedded is the kneecap, you see, the patella. And now a ligament is bone to bone, which I think you'd agree this is, and a tendon attaches a muscle to a bone. So you've got a bit of both going on there. But anyway, the point being, the limiting factor to the strength of this joint, of this upper leg and lower leg, is the strength of the bones, because the bones are the things that the muscles are anchored to. So if you had weak bones and you had bigger, disproportionate muscles, you're going to struggle, and your body's not, basically not stupid. So it's not going to let you have the muscle that can't be supported. So think of your bones as like the scaffolding. Right. Matthew. Hi, Stephen and Richard, who's absent at the moment, but on his way. How long did it take you to recover from the 24-hour live stream? This is a very convoluted answer because I did not factor in the post-production of getting all the material out as hourly segments and doing timestamps, and therefore doing all the graphics and then doing transcripts for everything and converting them to podcasts so people that could get audios. I am not asking for charity here. I'm just telling you what goes on. I mean, this doesn't get paid. I'm not sponsored by anybody. And the reason I sort of talk about that is someone asked me if I was sponsored by the beef industry. No, not at all. The idea is that, you give out content for nothing, and hopefully people might want to book you for coaching or for training, those sort of things. I tend not to push stuff unless I actually use it. I am definitely experimenting with Richard's. Oh, that looks like a urine sample, doesn't it? But actually, the electrolytes that Richard does supply. So to answer the recovery thing, if I didn't have all that other stuff to do, and also a little bit stressed, because when we moved into this property, there was a huge leak in the roof, and that was a lot of money to find that you're not expecting, especially after you just paid to move. So money's a bit tight at the moment, so that's stressing me, and also getting the live stream out. So if you add all that together, I would say I didn't really recover until I'd got all the content out, because I really wanted to get the 24 segments out over the next 24 days, which was quite, pressure sensitive, as well with, as other interviews and other videos, studying as well, because I like to be up to date with all the research. So, but I would also say I couldn't have done the 24 hours if I'd been on carbs. Simple as that. I wouldn't have even been able to stand for that long. I just know. And I also would have had to eat all the time and all this sort of stuff. So I would say it took probably 30 days. If I hadn't have had to put the content out, I think I would have been okay 2 days later. Simple as that. But it was basically lots and lots of work. Sadly, which I didn't sort of factor in, which is a bit stupid. But anyway, so the transcripts, for instance, there's a lot of material there. They're probably not as good as they could be. But anyway, that's okay. I hope that answered that question. So yeah, let's say it would have been 2 days without all the content. But with the content, it probably was till I'd got all the content out. Thanks very much, Coach Stephen. That's all right, Rod. That's fine. He's 10 minutes late because someone asked him a quick question. Yes. Wow, that's someone that knows Richard. Absolutely. Yeah, that is the best comment of the day. And also it will show you what the time lag is because other people have seen that comment before I read it out. So that's pretty good. All right. Remember. Okay. So what I'm going to say to you is, that is the funniest thing I know about Richard. So I hope you all enjoyed that while we were waiting for him. Anyway, he's here now, so we can't talk about him. Was your ears?
How are we doing?
We're doing good. How are you?
Yes, a little bit worse for wear. One of the guys had a puncture on the bike ride, so I'd be going hammer and tong to get back in time for this. So a little bit late, and worse for wear, but I'm doing.
Oh, it's all right. I just told them bits and bobs. Right. Okay. I'm drinking your electrolyte here.
Brilliant.
Looking at it, would you say I've put too much powder in?
You need to adjust the taste. So, and that's the thing when it comes to the electrolytes. There's no set amount for each person. Okay. Which is something we get asked continuously, how much shall I put in? Well, just adjust the taste. Your body will tell you if it's too much. If you don't like it, then it's too strong. So dilute and put less in. If it's not strong enough, add more. So what I find is I began with a little, and then I've added an awful lot.
Right, I'm just I'm going to catch you up. Obviously I told a few things about you. We were talking about the 24-hour live stream as well. Phil Richardson, they're up in Dundee where it's sunny, by the way, somewhere. Is it sunny in Wales, by the way? Right.
Yes.
Where you are now? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hence my red hot cheeks as well.
One of the questions was, how long did it take you to recover? And I was just saying that I did I had to cut the 24 hours into 24-hour hourly segments and do transcripts and podcasts and graphics and stuff, which I hadn't really factored in. So my recovery, if I hadn't have had the content, would have been 2 days, but I think I didn't really fully recover until I'd actually stopped working on it, which was after I'd got the content out. So, so I will now go into this question. Did I go straight to sleep after 24 hours? No, I didn't. And you didn't, did you, Richard?
I went straight into work. So yeah, we finished at 8 a.m. I went straight to work. I worked all day, fasted, and then I went for a 5-mile run at 6 p.m. And I didn't eat, I think, until about 8 p.m. and I didn't get to bed until gone midnight that night. So, and what people don't realize is that we weren't just awake for that 24 hours. I was up for a few hours before that as well.
Yes.
So,
of course.
So yeah, I was awake for, for over 2 days, I think, if you factor everything in, and fasted for close to 2 days as well. And I ran the 5-mile perfectly fine. In fact, I probably felt better because I was lighter, maybe, I don't know. But the run went really well. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't even tired by that point. I was tired during the podcast, especially towards the end. And I think, that tells in the recording. But the second I was up out of the seat and I was into doing something else, and your brain is thinking about something else, and you're moving and the blood is flowing. It's as if we hadn't even done the 24-hour. So there's no way that I could do that on carbohydrate. Not a chance in the world. I wouldn't have stayed up for that long on carbohydrate. If I did, I definitely wouldn't have been able to concentrate that long. I certainly wouldn't have been able to work the next day, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to do a run. So yeah, it's a testament to our way of life, I think.
Yeah, and I sort of said similar. I'd never told you this, but I was contemplating sort of starting it in pajamas and having a change of clothes throughout the day, and like going back to pajamas when it got to about 10 o'clock at night. But then I realized it would be a bit corny, but it might have been funny. But anyway, we can try with that. I want to show you a comment that made me laugh out loud when I told everyone you were going to be 10 minutes late. And this is Piper. She said this. He's 10 minutes late because someone asked him a quick question. Brilliant.
Yeah, fair enough.
So people getting to know you, right? So do you mind jumping in with a couple of remarks?
Fire away.
Should we just go? So TLV, which I don't know what that stands for, but anyway, I've gained a ridiculous amount of weight, but it's all muscle mass since switching to carnivore. I haven't lost any fat yet, but I'm only looking at the belly, which I think that's common. The belly fat sticks around for some people.
So my question there would be, what makes you think you haven't lost any fat? What measurement of testing are you using? When it comes to working out and training, I think even going by the clothes isn't the best gauge, because you tend to fill out a little bit more. The only way, or the cheapest way to know, because obviously you're not going to tell by the scale, is by using a caliper. And if you hadn't have tested with a caliper before you began the journey, then you're not going to know whether you've lost or not. I'd be surprised if you haven't lost any. But that said, I mean, gaining muscle mass is fantastic. There could be a number of reasons as to why you haven't lost the fat. You could be consuming too much fat. There could be hidden polyols in certain foods, maybe, that you could be eating. Carnivore, so I don't consume you containing lectins unless you're eating burgers and sausages, perhaps. But it's generally a case of too much fat consumption. One of the first things that I do in order to drop body fat is I'll take out additional fats. So I'll take the fat out of my cooking. So I'll remove the butter. I'll cook the animal proteins in their own juices, in their own fats. I'll remove any cream from coffee. I'll take out cheese and things, or reduce at least. All those little things. So I'll go back to eating foods as nature intended, eating foods in complex, and you'll quickly find that the weight should start coming off. It could be a case of, I mean, I'm carnivore, and I regard myself as being incredibly strict carnivore. But I do have Greek yogurt occasionally, because I believe that Greek yogurt is okay. I still eat cheese because I still believe cheese is okay. And those things work very well for me. But a couple of people that I've worked with when they have removed the Greek yogurt, just that one thing, only a little bit per day, they notice that they ramp up fat oxidation, and that fat comes down considerably. But you either need to be measuring with a tape measure or a caliper, or I wouldn't even recommend the scales that say that they do muscle mass and fat percentage, because they are wildly inaccurate. And to put that into perspective, I tested on one a week before or a week after I did a competition, and my body fat percentage was incredibly low. I usually compete around 2%, 3% maybe. And this told me that I was 23%. So wildly inaccurate. My skin was transparent. I didn't, and I know this to be the case because I later tested on the in-body machine, and I had in fact, when I tested, it was 3% body fat, which was 2 weeks after the European Championship, and I was carrying 2.3 kilograms of fat in my whole body. So either measure with a tape or caliper. But yeah, those are my little hints and tips for fast tracking a little bit of fat loss.
And I went off the screen because I was trying to find my calipers, but I've had a big tidy up, so I have no idea where they are. So right, it's just to show people what they are. But basically, they just pinch. It's a device that you can pinch fat. And to be honest, though, if you use a consistent thing, you can still see a trend. I agree with Richard wholeheartedly about inaccuracy. And only yesterday I was talking about using bloods. I had a client and we were doing phlebotomy, and they used 2 different labs for their blood tests, and the normative ranges, the normal ranges, not optimal by the way, were completely different for ferritin, and so the readings were different. And I said, well, because you use the same lab the time before that, we've seen a big drop in ferritin, but because you've gone to a different lab and they've got a different reference range, but you're still within the reference range of this different reference range, I feel that I'm not confident that we're doing a like for like, because the way they're measuring ferritin, although they're using the same units, they have a different reference range. You're in reference in their test by a considerable amount, but in the other lab with their reference range, you'd be out. So if you are going to test anything and you haven't got money to have a DEXA scan or MRI, you've got to find something and do the consistent thing. So even if it's photographs, try to be in the same lighting, same clothes, same position, camera in the same place, anything that you can do. So using Richard's thing about it's not accurate. Let's say you had a tape measure that was inaccurate, okay, and it was 3 inches out, and you measured your waist and it said 40, but actually you were 37. And 6 months later, it said 37, but actually you're 34. It's still showing you that you've lost 3 inches. It's still showing you, even though it's not the right number, it's showing you a difference. So we've got this one here. Did you put this one up, Richard? For Carsten? Did you put this question up?
No.
Okay. It must have been me. I'm more efficient than I thought. Did somebody who eats grain-finished beef got blood tested for omega-6/3 ratios? I haven't. I know what you're saying. So earlier on, Rich, when you were sort of doing your 100-mile bike ride or whatever, and having a puncture, someone asked about DEXA scans. So now I think this is where this is coming from. Is anybody in your understanding or in my field, has anyone who's eaten grain-finished beef been blood tested for the omega-6/3 ratio? No, my answer to that is sorry. I can't tell you of any personal experience of anybody that's been grain-finished beef eating and also tested for the 6:3 ratio. So I have nothing. I can't give you any anecdotes about that.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who's been tested either, but my theory on that would be that we slate the omega-6s. Now, omega-6 is still essential, a small portion, but it's not the fact that the oil is omega-6, it's the fact that it becomes oxidized. So these vegetable oils, these seed oils that we consume, they become oxidized, and that's what causes the issues within the body. In theory, any fresh meat we consume is not being oxidized. So I would there argue that regardless of the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, the fact that it is unoxidized, I don't think it'd make an awful lot of difference. Now, I do go for grass-fed. I avoid grain-fed for the same thing. This is the reason that I limit the amount of chicken that I consume, unless I can find grass-fed chicken, which is incredibly difficult. It's the same reason that I limit the amount of pork, because pork is naturally higher in omega-6 in linoleic acid. I think it's around 20% compared to 2 in beef. But again, if we follow the logic that it is unoxidized, then it shouldn't be a problem. But I do still personally limit the amount just in case. But I'd be surprised if there is a difference. But again, if you can eat steak every day, then why would you want to eat anything else?
Absolutely. Great. Matthew here, who's obviously a big carnivore fan of all the people around. Harry Sipanis, do you know him?
I don't.
Oh, Richard. There's a guy that would make your answers look short. I'm serious. He does live streams that maybe last 5 hours. Generally, for no other reason than he can talk and talk. He's very, very into the science. Anyway, he's recently on Jonathan's YT channel, YouTube, and he recommends supplementing with taurine because it has many positive benefits like enhanced exercise recovery and sleep. Do you think it's beneficial? So, I mean, taurine is in meat. I mean, it is something you can get without supplementing. So what do you think?
Yeah, and I'd be inclined to agree. I think if you were not living a carnivore lifestyle, then, you know, I would say there's a benefit to supplementing the volume of meat that I consume. I don't think that I would see a benefit, although, you know, I'm open to suggestion. You know, things like taurine and caffeine are seen as giving us this mythical form of energy, but it's not energy. In the case of caffeine, caffeine affects the adenosine receptors, and it hides the amount of stress or lack of fatigue that the body is going through to allow you to continue. So in effect, you're borrowing tomorrow's energy today. And I think taurine may work down the same line. So, I mean, there could be benefit in athletic performance. We know there's benefit to all these amino acids. You know, creatine, we know there's a benefit to creatine. Now, I used to supplement with creatine because it would massively improve my athletic performance. Since I've been deep carnivore, I've come away from creatine, and I haven't noticed any drop off in the volume of explosive power, or strength, which is one of the main reasons that you would take creatine. So I'd be inclined to think that there would be enough in beef, in animal proteins. But I wouldn't be against supplementing. I mean, it is a product from meat. It is a product from animal sources. I do occasionally supplement with leucine, the amino acid leucine. Massive benefits to leucine. It is the most anabolic amino acid, and that can stimulate and heal and repair the body. And that is a fantastic amino acid. So it's a branch chain amino acid, one of 3, but the other 2 are incredibly low on activating mTOR on the anabolic scale. You only need leucine because we get plenty from the meats we eat. So, I mean, I'm open to supplementing with creatine and leucine. So I certainly wouldn't be against taurine.
No, and I think just for those that are interested and do know Harry, I was going to get Harry onto the live stream, and I sent out invites, and actually both Richard and I were very surprised by how many people just said yes straight away. And by the time that had happened, there were a few people I wanted to invite, and I just couldn't because there was no slots. So next year it will be better organized, and we'll have a few more people on that maybe couldn't get on. Phil here is saying you're a machine, Richard. You did a run.
Yeah.
You are a machine.
Thank you. I don't feel like a machine, a broken machine. Yeah, do you know, it's incredible what the human body, you know, can do. I've recently started running and cycling. I couldn't run 1.5K when I began not so very long ago. You know, I've now run 5K in 18 minutes 45, half marathon in 1.5 hours. And I couldn't cycle, 15 miles when I began, and now I'm cycling comfortably over 100 very regularly. The human body is an outstanding machine, and if we feed it the nutrients that it needs, that allows us to heal and repair, and we can achieve some amazing things. There's nothing special about me. I'm not genetically gifted. Anybody can achieve the things that I do. The difference is that I'm using a tool that nobody else is using. Despite screaming it through the rooftops, telling everybody that I see, this is the magic elixir to sports and athletic performance. Very few within the community want to take it on, but that's fine, because it'll just give me the advantage, and I'll just continue to push forward and improve and prove them wrong eventually. Although it'll be another excuse then, I guess, isn't it? But and I'm loving these comments as well, by the way. Thank you.
Yes. So for people on the audio podcast, I've flashed up a few comments. Copper's Kitchen has put, "We love you, Richard." Piper's just put, nice smiley faces, and put, "For the record, I love the depth that Richard goes to when answering questions, and so do I." And if anyone thinks I give him too much of a hard time, it is banter. I promise you, absolute banter. And here we go. TLV, sorry, TLV was saying about the fat, and they've just commented, "I'd say it's starting now, just being superficial." Yeah, and I think that's the thing. When you gain muscle, you can sort of focus on that and not actually see the fat that you're losing coming off. I know it sounds strange. And also, if you look at some people that are bodybuilders, and with their shirt off, they are ripped to great extremes. They can look quite bulky in a shirt. You can actually think, well, is that person actually fit, or are they a bit overweight? So, this way of eating, you're going to lose body fat without a doubt, if you do it right and listen to your satiety signals. So Sunny's saying, "Great 24-hour live stream. Posting each speaker separately was a great idea. Thank you very much. I'm forever grateful to you both, Stephen and Richard, for your weekly lives and your separate channels as well." And I'm going to jump to a question or a statement that someone's put, and then we'll come back, because I think it's an interesting thing on the back of that, if I can find it very quickly. If not, I won't put it up yet. I saw it just now. Anyway, okay, well, maybe it's gone. Maybe I deleted it accidentally. Oh yeah, here we go. So Piper's put, "I don't understand how these guys," so not really talking to us, "have tens of thousands of subscribers." Now, when I met Richard, I felt exactly the same about Richard. And I think Richard was surprised how many I got. Well, I don't have a lot. I'm lucky enough to have a bit more than Richard, so I'm coming up to about 8,000 subscribers. One of the things that we don't do is we don't constantly go on about, can you subscribe, can you like, and stuff like that, can you comment? I know I did last week. So firstly, that's one of the things. I spent a lot of time not even pushing and asking for subscribers. And I think when I met Richard, I was absolutely gobsmacked that he didn't even have 1,000, and I know that's gone up to about 1,200, which is good. And we talk behind the scenes about people that have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and not necessarily in Carnivore as well. I mean, just in general, there are some people out there with huge followings, and then when you watch their content, you wonder why. But there you go. But there are people with Ken Berry, I think it's over 2 million. Absolutely take my hat off to him, because the volume of information and videos he does are so consistent. He's grown his channel, and he's grown as a person. He's never once been inflammatory about other people. He just gets on being very positive. Yes, he'll pick up on the organizations like the Diabetes Association or the Heart Association, but he doesn't tend to pick out like other influencers or anything like that. So it's great. And same with Dr. Berg. So I think a positive message, lots of good information. You tend to get good subscribers eventually. I think people do eventually find you. The other thing is YouTube and the algorithm. They decide what you see in your feed. They decide. So you can say something that maybe they don't like that's been flagged up, and then you won't get pushed. You won't get recommended. That definitely happens. And I can remember Bart Kay, when I started doing the YouTube thing a couple of years ago, And I think his following was about 14,000. And he actually went quite public and said, I'm stuck at 14,000. I've been saying a few things people don't like. Da, 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 da. This went on for about 8-9 months where he wasn't getting any subs. And then now he's at 34,000 because he just changed slightly, I think, how he presented it. Maybe didn't swear so much or whatever it was, didn't call out certain people that the mainstream like. So there's a lot to it going on behind the scenes. So anyway, right. If you've not subscribed to either of our channels, we would really appreciate it. If you comment, that pushes you up the algorithm, liking, all of that, sharing, please do all of that. So that's great. So that's that out of the way. So let's do the next thing, which is a really good question from Matthew. So everybody that's commenting, thank you for the support. It's really appreciated. And if you've not subbed, I mean, and you don't want to, it's fine too. Right. Do your families eat as a carnivore, or are they eating keto, low carb, or a different way? So yes, my family is very small. I lost my parents when I was younger. So really, I've just got my wife, my current wife, my second wife, Jane, who would possibly call herself ketovore. If she starts getting any joint pain or anything that, you know, is upsetting her a little bit, then she'll go carnivore just to get rid of it. So occasionally she might eat something that flares it up. We had family over on Friday night and Jane made a moussaka and I thought, I'll have a bit of that. So in that is eggplant or aubergine, however you want to call it, depending where you live, and a couple of veggie bits in that moussaka. It was mainly mince, lamb mince. So I thought, I'll have a little bit of that. Oh boy, I've had 2 days of absolutely suffering from that. So if I go off the carnivore way of eating, it's not great. So the family do know that, but they still probably ketovore. So her daughters both are eating more protein than they used to, but they're in their 20s and they still won't go the whole hog. And their partners, one is gone higher protein and is looking at weight training and resistance training basically, and the other one not so much. So it's difficult and it's very hard, and I bite my tongue a lot of times. And as Richard said earlier, you know, in his sort of you know, the athletic sphere, he's doing really well, but other people don't want to know. So you can't force it down people's throats. But also the other way is it's not worth arguing over. You know, if they choose to eat something that you don't want to eat, you know, I don't go, oh, moussaka. Oh, if I eat that, I'm going to be at the toilet for 2 days, because that's spoiling their experience. So if they want to eat that way and I don't, and I just have steak or whatever, I just go with the flow. I never sort of comment one way or the other. So that's my 2 penneth. Rich?
Yeah. So my my wife is carnivore. My little girl, yeah, it's a massive bugbear of mine. If I had my way, she would be carnivore. The problem is too many external variables, if you like, when she goes to school. You know, I've tried speaking to the school in regards to nutrition. You know, I've tried explaining what I do, but to them, I'm a nobody. You know, the government tells us to feed the kids this way. Who are you? You know, sort of thing. And when she goes over to families' houses, when she's babysat, for example, you know, they know how I feel about certain foods. But they, you know, sometimes their attitude is they think that they're doing a service or giving a treat. They don't understand the dangers, you know, associated. I mean, sugar's a drug. It's more addictive than heroin. You wouldn't give a child heroin. You know, why would you give a can of Coke, a can of pop, or you know, a chocolate bar, a candy bar? I know the damage that these things cause because I've been there. You know, I've been at the bottom of the well, if you like. You know, I've been clinically obese and type 2 diabetic and unable to breathe because I've eaten so many carbohydrates, and unable to walk up the stairs, and in bed for days with daily debilitating migraines and suffering with intestinal permeability. But for everybody else, they think that you are absolutely crazy. I probably get more support from you guys. than I do from people, within my immediate circle, my wife excluded. My little girl understands what real nutrition is. She knows that meat is the most nutrient dense food on the planet, and she knows certain foods are bad for her. And I would love her to be carnivore, but these external variables are sometimes out of your control. So you need to take it with a pinch of salt. And I think children will become the little versions of us, the products of us. And I think that will feed through eventually. I think that, her seeing me riding a bike on weekends and doing, training in the gym and running and trying to keep fit and making this effort every day to eat these foods, I think that will rub off eventually. I always make sure that she eats animal proteins. And the other thing is that it's difficult when it comes to her going to friends' houses. So if they have a birthday party, and there's cake involved and sweets, at the same time, I don't want to be that parent that, is ostracizes her child because, they're not allowed to eat sweets, and they become picked on and bullied because of it. So for now, I've taken the stance that it's all about the rule and not the exception. So if she's eating healthy with me, which is most of the time, then what happens outside is out of my control for now. And that's something that I've had to accept through gritted teeth. And it is a massive bugbear of mine. And to be honest, I lose sleep over it because, when you work in these circles, you see the damage that these foods cause. We see what these oxidized seed oils do and what excess carbohydrates do. We know about the damaging effects of lectins and phytoalexins, these plant toxins. But the rest of the world is blind to it, and we endeavor every day to put that information out there. And I think it is getting out. The community is growing, but we are definitely a minority for certain. But all we can do is persevere, isn't it? But all of my family have tried. They've tried keto. Some of them have tried carnivore. Every one of them has gone back, unfortunately. They've tried it several times. I think they understand and appreciate the benefits. But again, sugar's a drug, and it's more addictive than heroin. And the monster seems to pull them back in. My brother, likes a beer. Very fit person, but suffers with a few issues. I think everybody in my family suffers with some form of illness, to be honest. And I was the worst, and now I'm the only one that doesn't suffer with anything. Every one of them have tried, but unfortunately, the demon has pulled them back in, which is really frustrating for me because, there's one family member in particular who is in a bad way, and just changing the food that they consumed would solve the problem. But their answer to me was, I like my custard creams. And it's like, what can you say to that? I don't want to go into too much detail, just in case they're listening. I don't want to give too much away, but it involves an incredible operation that I would not want to go through. And if it meant the difference between dropping a custard cream or not going through this operation, I know what my choice would be, but it just baffles me. But I do understand it because we've gone into this during the 24-hour live, how food is an addiction and how it affects the neurotransmitters in the brain. These foods that we consume block our body's ability to create these neurotransmitters. And this feeds this craving for our dopamine hits. So we go searching for these foods because we're hardwired to chase dopamine. And if the neurotransmitters in the brain are not being produced, we will seek other ways to create this dopamine release. And unfortunately, sugary foods or foods with carbohydrates is one of the mechanisms that does this. And we do this intuitively or subconsciously. And it's a shame because through education and understanding that the foods they're consuming are blocking the cofactors involved with this neurotransmitter synthesis, then they could overcome food addiction. But yeah, it's tough. It's difficult.
Yeah, I could tell. I mean, that was a beautiful answer, Rich. And yeah, I'm sorry that you are going through that. And if it makes you feel any better, I mean, I've skirted around the issue because, yeah, there is a very similar situation within our circle where someone is really struggling and actually has gone through the medication surgery thing rather than stick with a diet, and it's heartbreaking. So I really felt for you there. I am sort of glad I haven't got kids growing up right now, because I would be exactly where you are. I would just find it so difficult, and you don't want to be the killjoy, the person that says no. But I love what you said. You wouldn't give a child cocaine or heroin or a beer even, or why not try smoking? And so, they're all addictive. So why does sugar get a free pass? The other thing is, and I think I don't want to dwell on this too much because it sounds very much like too political, but that there are people now in labs working out foods that will make your little girl want to eat stuff.
Yeah.
They're not looking at food to be healthy. They're looking at profit.
They're
And
looking
can
at
we make
making
it
it
addictive?
Yeah.
And it's frightening. So I think that's the thing. Especially when you are a very good example. I think I'm a pretty good example as well. It makes you want to pull your hair out sometimes, because you just think, well, look at me, look, I've changed my life. Come on. But there is so much peer pressure. But yes, the strange thing is we do have a question that goes on the back of that. So this is from Phil. Do you have any advice on children working out to grow muscle? My boys are 6 and 9. My 9-year-old wants to be faster and stronger when playing soccer.
So I think this is one of those subjects that can get taboo, if you like, because we're told that children shouldn't lift weights and train until they're over 16. I'm not a believer in that personally. I know lots of men who are absolutely huge and started training when they were 6 and 7. So I don't believe that it stunts your growth. But I mean, nutrition is key. So no matter what you do as far as movement goes, whether, if you're playing football, you're putting your legs under stress and pressure. If you're training for football, you're doing press ups and sit ups and all these sorts of things. Nutrition is key. And it comes down to not so much what you eat, but what you don't eat. And taking out those lectins in particular. So it's not even carbohydrate. It to me, the biggest bang for the buck comes from removing lectins, particularly the grains. If we can gravitate the children away from consuming. Oh, are you still there? Yeah, my computer.
Yeah, I'm
went off.
still here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everything just went dark on my screen. Yeah, I think removing those foods, predominating the animal proteins, but you're going to see more bang for your buck. So, I mean, I don't, when I teach people during the classes that I run, for example, week 1 is removing grains. Because grains don't serve any purpose in nutrition within our lifetime, within our lifestyle. There's no place for grains, modern grains. If you can massively reduce these, then the body's going to heal and repair a lot quicker. There's going to be a lot less fat storage and a lot less of the downstream deleterious effects of the intestinal permeability caused by the lectins. That's where the biggest bang for the buck's going to come. Then removing the processed foods because of the seed oils and actively removing things in packets in the supermarket. But again, I understand it's difficult with children, but reducing is better than nothing. And then making sure that, your children are drinking either like electrolytes or salt in the meals. Salt is so important. It's well underrated. It's one of the most underrated commodities on the planet. I believe. We need salt and potassium, but potassium we get in abundance in our animal proteins. And then carbohydrates comes number 4 on the list. For me. So the grains and seed oils is the biggest bang for the buck, but nutrition. So we can go down the route of what type of training and stuff to do, but anything you do is going to see a benefit. And being a child, they just go into their IGF-1 is through the roof. They're going to grow regardless. But if you supply the body with the nutrients that it needs to heal and repair while removing those foods that are anti-nutrients, which are the lectins in particular, and vegetables, believe it or not. Vegetables are anti-nutrients. Fiber is an anti-nutrient. It's difficult to remove vegetables completely, but reduce and increase the animal protein. So I try to make sure my little girl eats either an egg every day or steak. So either steak or egg, some form. She likes chicken, which is great, but it's not beef. Chicken is fantastic. So that's the trade-off for me. So she eats more beef. She likes tuna. So I work that in, but I make sure that she either has at least one egg or some slices of beef, which I cut up incredibly small because children find it difficult to chew. I make sure that the fatty pieces are cut off. I know that is really important within the beef, but children don't like it so much. So I cut off the fatty pieces. But the nutrition is the biggest bang for the buck.
Cool. That's great. And Phil doesn't know this. I don't think Richard knows the next thing I'm going to say. But actually, at England FA headquarters, I did an FA coaching badge. And when you're training for soccer, you want to be specific in the training. So if you want to be faster and stronger, footballers do not sprint constantly. So you need to do like relays, where you got like a whistle, or you just on a command or something, put some cones up, short distances, get them to jog, and then a cone, put the cones in a square sort of thing. And at one of the cones, decide that's where they're going to sprint, and just sprint, and then they sprint. And then the next thing will be a jog, and then maybe sprint, and you actually get them trained to play soccer. That's if you want to be faster, that's what you want, because soccer isn't necessarily about us from a standing start or doing a 5K in 20 minutes or whatever. It is short bursts of sprinting. And then, if you go to watch soccer and you watch the professionals, many people are quite surprised at how much they don't run. But when they do run, boy, do they run. They run pretty fast. And you also don't want to necessarily do straight lines as well. You want to be zigzagging and all that sort of stuff. We could talk about children working out forever, but there's loads of questions. One of the other things I'm going to say is there is a time lag. So there's quite a few comments that are going up from what we spoke about earlier. So I'm going to whiz through those, Rich, just because it's nice here. So Copper's Kitchen is completely agreeing with Sunny that the 24-hour live stream was wonderfully organized. Moderation was just perfect and cannot wait for the next one. So that's really good. And here's a comment. I would love to see the over-under, which I don't really understand, but maybe Richard does, on 100 question quickfire with Richard and Dr. Chafee, each answering the questions. So do you know what that means, over-under? No? Okay. You're muted, sir.
I do not. Sorry.
Good. Right. Okay. Well, we'll carry on.
Oh, yeah,
Jennifer TX Carnivore. Everyone needs to make Carnivore info flyers to pass out to their communities and make everyone aware of Carnivore. Reach many people, not just on the internet and interweb. Put on car and windshields and pass out. I agree. I think there should be different ways to get the message out. Partly why we did the 24-hour thing was try and be different and get some traction. TLV is saying, cheers, Richard. From what you said earlier, I went beef, eggs and water only last week. Can't believe how much muscle mass and strength I'm gaining from Carnivore. Health problems are disappearing almost daily, which is really great. Jennifer, someone needs to make magnetic vehicle Carnivore signs so you can drive around with advertisements for Carnivore. Could say Carnivore Heals. That is actually quite a good idea as well. And everyone needs to make their own YouTube channel showing Carnivore Heals, or make sure Carnivore is in the title so everyone finds your YouTube channel, show your healing process from Carnivore, which is what I've been trying to do. The UK Carnivore, my Carnivore Experience podcast, and all the success stories. And Rich has really got into that now and doing as many interviews as possible and better thumbnails, and everything is really hunky-dory. Adam, the fat addict, big love to both of you. Thank you so much, Adam. It's two-way, which is good. Jennifer Piper, they need more exposure. We do. Homestead Howe needs to inform everyone about Stephen and Richard. Well, yeah, but I think We're trying. We're trying to get people to do this. So let's get back to a question now. So we're caught up a little bit. Carsten, is heating tallow over the smoke point unhealthy? Need heat for thin steaks to sear quickly?
Yeah, I can't do it. There was, it's been so long since I've looked at the heat point in different fats. I can't remember where tallow sits on that. But what I would say is generally, when something gets to a smoke point, it becomes unhealthy. I may be wrong. I'm just going back on, this was something that I looked at a very long time ago, but you could add olive oil or avocado oil to prevent it from burning. Avocado oil is pretty stable with heat, and olive oil. I was a big believer a long time ago that we shouldn't heat olive oil, but research that I've seen recently, I've come away from thinking that so much. But why would you want to cook in olive oil when you can cook in butter, tallow, lard, or ghee anyway? If you are worried, chuck some olive oil or some avocado oil in to prevent it. But I'm unsure. What's your thoughts, Steve?
Well, I'm just looking up actually the smoke point of
generally
tallow.
When something gets to that smoke point, it's generally a sign, isn't it, that it does have a higher smoke point, I believe. Most saturated fats do, but I know butter, tallow, lard, ghee are all different on the scale. I can't remember which one is at the top. I know lard is pretty high. I know that was considerably higher than butter.
Yeah, lard is, the smoke point is 188 Celsius or 370 Fahrenheit. That's lard, and which is very similar to olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is 375 Fahrenheit, 191 Celsius. You see, this is where you get a big problem, is because tallow is not even on this list. Butter is 350, 177. And I'd actually just searched for tallow in particular. So I would have to keep looking how to make beef tallow. Due to its high smoke point, so this is saying here it's 420 to 480 Fahrenheit.
Which is what in Celsius?
That's going to be, sorry, this is really off the top of my head, 250.
So it is considerably high. Well, that's incredibly high, isn't it? I mean, but it's still, if it is smoking, then that's usually a sign that it's too high, isn't it? I mean, you could try adding, as I say, the extra virgin olive oil or some avocado. I tend to cook it in its own fat. I'll pop it in a pan, and I'll put the pan, on low to begin with for the juices to come out, and then I'll ramp it up once some of the juices are out, and I'll probably do a minute or two each side just to sear them, and that's me done. It's raw, inside and seared on the outside. But we want to be careful. We don't want to burn the steak either, because burning will create acrylamide, which is toxic. It's a known carcinogen. It causes inflammation within the body in the same way that excess coffee consumption can do so. So, I mean, burning food, we don't really want to be doing. So, yeah, I mean, I probably rein it in a little bit, not burn it as much. I'm all for searing, especially the fat. I love crispy chicken skin and crispy fat on the pork chop and around the edge of the steak and things. But we definitely don't want to be overburning the meats that we're cooking.
No. And I use minute steaks and cook it in lard. As long as, so basically, I think as long as when you put the steak in, it sizzles, that there's only going to need a minute once it's sizzling. And I tend not to see any smoke. So anyway, we'll both brush up on our tallow smoke point for next week. TLV, I reckon if Richard wore a body cam for a day showing your workout and your day at work and everything else, you could do it and title it as doing a Goggins, not a Giggins, and it would go viral. I do think, Rich, actually, I'm hoping to speak to Richard after this, just off air, and talk about a few ideas. I don't know if you can do that, Rich, but yeah, I agree. I think you posted something of you just doing some hanging from a bar and lifting legs up. And I mean, stuff like that people love. They do love.
Do you know why I did that? That came from a conversation with Dr. Chafee. So him and I had a chat last week, and he said, Do you know what kickstarted my following off? He said is that I released a video with my shirt off on a barbecue when some cool song kicked in. He said, "Just take your top off and do something." And I was like, "Oh my god, I don't know if I can do that." And I've competed on stage in my pants, but I'm not a poser. I don't like. I don't walk. You see these people in the street, as soon as the sun's out, their top is off, and that's not me. I don't walk around with my top off. I don't like going swimming because I don't like taking my top off. Still sort of fairly body conscious, I guess. So nobody's perfect, but I don't like the way that my body looks. All I see is imperfections. But again, that's what drives you forward, isn't it? That's what keeps me on the straight and narrow. But that's what he advised, so that's what I did, and the post did incredibly well. So I'm going to release that on YouTube as a short as well to see if we get some views.
I mean, you never know what's going to get the traction. I mean, I don't have a big following on Instagram, but about 2 years ago, somebody said you should try a reel. And so, yes, if you want to follow us on Instagram, that's another thing you can help to do. Rich has got a bigger following on Instagram than I have. But anyway, I did a reel, and what I did was I did I broke an egg, put the contents of the egg into a frying pan, and then took out the membrane and said, if you're looking for collagen, that's collagen, you can cook that. And in the background, there was a little illustration of an egg bouncing like this. And I put it out there. Then when I joined the Steak and Butter gang, shows how little I know about technology and how little I understand social media. Bella there said, you do realize that that's gone viral? And I didn't even know it had gone viral. And I think it's now had 1 million views.
Wow.
This little 30-second thing. So I think I've got a fair few followers from that, but I've not been able to recreate that that sort of traction again. So anyway, Adam there is the fat addict. I'm a big believer that if you restrict the bad food from kids, and again, just showing the time lag on the comments, I do apologize, they will find a way to eat bad food in secret. And as we all know, secret eating is where bad things happen. Yes, absolutely.
100%. So I quite often catch my little girl hiding little treats, if you can call them treats. And I don't want her to have to hide them from me as well. So it's incredibly difficult in order to marshal that, if you like, while trying to explain to her, look, you don't have to hide things. I don't like doing it, but she's daddy's little girl, so she doesn't want to disappoint me. So you're right, it is incredibly difficult. But coming back to the point earlier, just really quickly, if I wore a body cam all day, you guys would be incredibly bored, because most of my work is spent behind a desk, stressing and swearing to myself because things are going all shapes. And then, I deal with consultations and stock issues and packing issues. You would be bored senseless. My day isn't as exciting as one would believe, unfortunately. But yeah. And coming back.
No, I'm going to disagree before you say that, because that's what people like. People like real. They like, no, they do. Well, you'd have to edit it. I mean, obviously, but I think the reality of sending out a supplement, for instance, which, we know that Amazon, it would be a robot, a very underpaid person in a warehouse. To actually see somebody who cares about what's going on, I think it would be interesting. I really do. And I think the fact that you got involved in the ingredients, the mundane, what I just said to you about that egg, I mean, I thought that was pretty mundane, saying this is collagen, but 1 million people were interested. And I think there is something into that. I mean, obviously pick and choose. If your day is, hello, oh, this is Richard, yeah, I'll take your order. I mean, you don't want to see like 30 minutes of you picking the phone up. But drama is definitely a thing that people would relate to. If you've got an irate customer saying, I ordered this electrolyte, and they were swearing at you, and you could hear it and all this, and it was no fault of your own, or they typed their address in wrong or something, it's real. I wouldn't underestimate that personally. Sorry to interrupt you, Rich, but
you wouldn't believe, that some of the things that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, there you go.
Doing a quick 180. I recorded a video 2 years ago with my little girl doing a little keto video, like seven simple steps to keto. And I was convinced that was going to go viral, and it didn't, because, you know, as you know, a lot of my YouTube content and things is, I think through the algorithms, has been suppressed. But I'm going to release that again. I'm going to release that again this week. It's my little girl. It took 4 days to film this 4-minute video. So it took 4 days, 2 weekends, of which only 2 minutes is content, and the other 2 minutes were all the bloopers and things that happened. So basically it took 4 days to record 2 minutes worth of content. But I think it's incredible because it's done so innocently, and she worked so hard to do it. And I'm gonna release that in an attempt to push that viral. So when I do, I want all of you guys to jump on board and help me push it viral and share it and like it. Let's see if we can get a viral video on the go, because it's an incredible video. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. So there we are. That's the mission.
Cool. Paul Pearson, Keto Sense, possibly someone you know. Yeah,
I do indeed.
Totally resonating with everything you're saying, Rich. This is the biggest barrier we face in our family too. Very difficult being a parent and having this knowledge, which is the problem. You know, we know that these foods are bad, and we also are the example, but it's difficult. Susie Underwood, it's so difficult to watch family and friends suffer from the effects of poor diet. Though we try to be good examples, it can be so frustration. It's like the sugar stops up their ears, you know, like blocks them from hearing. I'm whizzing through some comments now. Sorry, Paul again. My 7-year-old son became the best player in his football team this year after adopting a low-carb lifestyle. No coincidence, I believe.
You spoke to Paul again recently. Paul and I have spoken for hours and hours, putting the world to rights in regards to children's health. And I recently recorded. In fact, I presented a video to a local school or the authority of the local school, in order to change the food that they give in the school. And I kept it incredibly simple. I just explained. I didn't go keto or carnivore. I didn't mention keto carnivore. I explained about how nutrient dense animal proteins are and the detrimental effects of grains. And I even promoted vegetables in order to persuade them into taking grains out, predominating vegetables and proteins. And I have nothing back. I haven't heard a whisper. Nothing has come from it whatsoever. I'm going to record that as a separate podcast, and I'm going to release that to see if it can get some traction. But yeah, we are pushing. We're targeting the doctors' surgeries and the schools, but these things fall on deaf ears. But Paul and I have spoken for hours trying to put the world to rights in regards to food for kids. It's incredibly difficult. Yeah,
thanks, Paul. That's great. So we've also got. Copper's Kitchen she was referring to the time it would take for people to answer the question when it's over and under. So so I get that now. So you would say, right, you've got a minute, I suppose, or 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Can you do it under, or are you going to go over? So that's good. Carsten says Homestead Howell had a 10-hour marathon 2 days ago. I actually don't know this influencer, so I will check that out. Jennifer saying body cams would be hilarious. Well, possibly. And
well, look, if we can get the followers up, if you can spread the word and get more people watching and listening to the channel, and we have a tidy audience to put it through to, then I will do it. I will wear a body cam from the second I wake up to when I go back to bed. But let's get the followers up first, though.
Phil here, if you want to appeal to the masses, you need to put yourself out there. Show your abs when you're riding to the top of a Welsh mountain.
I think I may scare a few people.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've caught up on the messages because we've gone way over the hour. So I just want to thank everybody. So, Rich, did you want to know the story that I told them about you before you turned up?
Yes. Go on, fire away. Hit me with it.
Well, it was just a big hoax.
I thought it might have been. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing. So thank you to everybody that was listening. So we've done an hour and 15 minutes. That's so easy, isn't it? An hour, schmour. I mean, basically, it's not anywhere near 24. Thanks everyone for all the comments and the questions, and definitely like and share and comment, subscribe, and if you know Homestead How and you want to get us on there, if you want to say you need to speak to these guys, go and do it. Honestly, people listen. You know, influencers will listen to their followers. If I just message and say, you know, have me on your program, that's not how it works. You know, that genuinely is not how it works. They need to approach you. And I think he's got, I've just looked it up, 128,000 followers. So he doesn't need me, but I need him. So that's how it works. Right. Before and after, what if we use my pictures as a before and yours as an after? There you go. No, Adam, you don't need to do that because Rich has got his before and afters, and so have you, Adam. You know, and you're, if you don't know Adam, if you don't know the Fat Addict, his before
11
and after
stone, 11 stone down, I think.
They're absolutely amazing. You know, and that's the thing. And Rich, I would say, you're very extreme because you went from being incredibly unfit and overweight and diabetic to actually winning a bodybuilding tournament. You know, it's just, that's a huge thing. So maybe that is something you could make a little bit more out of.
At a pro level, I might add. British and European. Yeah. So just get that in there. I did work hard for it.
So I just think this is it. So yeah, anyway, thanks everybody. And we'll end the broadcast. But Rich, can you stick around?
Yeah, definitely. I just like to say, look, some of the comments that have popped up on the screen have been absolutely incredible, and I'm feeling the love from everyone. And I think safe to say, Stephen and I love you all too. So thank you all so much. And I'm excited to be jumping back on this again next week. Steve, are we coming on at 7 next week?
Oh, yes. Good point. Yes. So I have a thing called vidIQ that tells me when I get more people watching. And it seems to be telling me that I need to go on about 7 o'clock. Now, this might be 7 o'clock in the evening in the UK. So we start at 5 in the UK now, but so it's going to be 2 hours later. This might be because things like MeatRx, Revero have their meeting at 5, and other big carnivore spaces have their thing at 5 or at 6 in the UK. So yes, next week we will start 2 hours later, and hopefully we will get more people watching and commenting doing that. So yeah.
Well, in fact, why don't we put it out to the guys on today? Comment, because this video will go live on your YouTube once we finish it. Is that so? Why don't we get the guys to comment on and get their preference to see, because it's important to look after the current listeners, I think, as well, isn't it? Should we see what they prefer, whether they 7 I think would be better suited, because I think that gives time for families to do stuff in the day on a Sunday, and it gives a chance for everyone to get settled and sit down and watch. You know, and if they don't, they can always watch again anyway. But I think it'd be good to get their opinion. So I can do either. 7 would work better for me.
Yes, and me.
Yeah.
It was just odd. I was, you know, the live at 5 seemed to be just a good title, and then a few people said, "Well, I can't do that because I'm doing Sean Baker's meeting," which is great. You know, because Sean, well, there's an example of someone who's a big influencer, and he bothers to do an hour every single day, and I think he's done that for like 4 or 5 years, virtually every day. So
speaking of which, I think I'm on with Sean on Thursday actually at 5.
There you go. You see, so I think that's you know, and Carsten says they like 7. Phil's got any time for him, so that's great. Anyway, we're going to shoot off. Please comment, like, share, subscribe. That'd be great. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.